In chapter 906 of One Piece, we see this menacing dark figure stand inside this enormous frozen vault in front of a giant straw hat holding Luffy's wanted poster. Little did we know that this character is not only the secret ruler of the entire world, but also holds the most mysterious and frightening power of any character in the entire One Piece world. Turns out that they are more important than Shanks, more important than Akainu, and yes, even more important than Blackbeard, as they will be the actual final villain of the entire story that Luffy will need to take down in order to free the world. So today I want to dig into every single thing that we know about Imu for a fact, as well as everything that has been hinted at by Oda as well. Imu, who interestingly enough also refers to themselves as Mu, is the supreme ruler of the world government, someone with absolute authority and power over the entire One Piece world, all hidden within the shadows. They're the only person who the Gorosei, the five elder planets, the characters that we previously thought had the most authority, actually answer to. In fact, their status is so high that the Gorosei Marcus Mars here literally refers to them as a creator, which side note is exactly what the Gorosei also call the original 20 kings, something that does point heavily to Imu being one of the original kings from the Void Century. On top of that, Ivankov here says something very similar, acknowledging that the name Imu is shared by one of the 20 original kings who formed the world government, Nerona Imu. And Imu was also taken very off guard by the reveal of Joy Boy's Haki during chapter 1122. And so based on the timeline, all of these facts together point to Imu actually being at least over 900 years old. And the name Nerona may actually hold the true secret to Imu's real goals and motives, something that we will circle back to in just a moment. So, with all of this political power, Imu can appoint a new Gorosei at will. We actually see this happen in chapter 1125, where it's revealed that Figureland Garling will be the new leader of science and defense. And well, another one of Imu's even more terrifying powers is then revealed on the very next page of the same chapter, something that we will also be talking about. Now, you probably don't know that despite their first official chapter being 906, Imu actually was hinted at as far back as chapter 793, when the newly appointed Fleet Admiral Akainu/Sakazuki was told to lie by the Gorosei about Doflamingo, citing it as an order from someone with authority above even their own. And keep in mind that for everyone else in the world, the Gorosei are the people that everyone has to answer to. The Fleet Admiral, ZP0, and even Kong, the world government's commander-in-chief. And so finding out this detail actually changed the entire story, but what if it was even deeper than that? What if I told you that Imu actually may have been hinted at as far back as even Skypiea? That's right, because the massive face on the arc Maxime here actually shares a shocking resemblance to what we know about Imu so far. Notice the really sharp nose shape and the same eye shape? I would argue that these features heavily mimic Imu's close-up face that we've seen so far, and they aren't even their only connection to God Enel as well. As we'll see in just a moment, there are actually a few other things as well that we'll get to in just a moment, but first, Imu also has the power capable of defeating the strongest fighters on the ocean, or even destroying entire islands. And this of course begs the question, what exactly is Imu's power and what else can they do? Well, for starters, we've seen them create dark arrows capable of piercing even someone as powerful as Sabo, and they can grow to a truly massive size, even larger than the Gorosei based on the panels in chapter 1085. I mean, when we look at this, the others are shown very clearly as much smaller shapes, where Imu ends up being shown as the entire background. And remember, as we saw on Egghead Island, the Gorosei's monster transformations are insanely huge themselves, so you can imagine how big Imu actually is here. And based on how Walpole reacted to seeing this by accident, they might just be the single most terrifying thing on the entire One Piece planet, even reminding me a little bit of these mysterious giant shadows that the Straw Hat saw in the Florian Triangle. And so based on what we know about the Gorosei's transformations, we can actually even take a guess at what Imu's true form might be. Because since all of the five elders have been based on different yokai, Japanese spirit monsters, using that as a base of reference, many people have theorized that Imu is actually an ancient Japanese demon known as the Umi Bozu. Umi being the ocean and Imu being the reverse of Umi. Now, these gigantic shadow monsters are true nightmares of the sea. Colossal beasts known to crash ships into the ocean and turn peaceful times into storm-ridden chaos. Very fitting. And as you can probably tell here, the silhouette of Imu and these creatures line up pretty nicely too here as they are transformed. Especially in this panel here as they are crawling down the throne. But turns out that the Umibozu and Imu have an even greater connection, something that might even reveal the true origins of devil fruits and Nika, the sun god himself. What do I mean by that? Well, people who are really deep into One Piece lore and theories, or just those who know Japanese, would know that the word Umi, as I mentioned earlier, literally means ocean or the sea. And again, very eagle-eyed viewers can tell you here that Umi is actually just Imu, but in reverse. Whoa, yeah, I know, I mean, like really complicated connections I'm talking about here. But jokes aside, it is actually important because this yokai connection may be the piece of evidence that shows off Imu's true origin as well. Now, the idea here is that Imu is actually the original sea devil, a divine being that actually originally created all of the devil fruits to gain full control over the strongest people in the world. Now, as far as we can tell, it seems that the Gorosei actually don't have devil fruits based on the fact that they seem to be able to swim in the ocean. We can see this as they're chasing down the ships leaving Egghead Island here. And if they can swim, then that means they don't have devil fruits, and that would seem to imply that Imu doesn't either. And if they actually are an Umibozu, an actual yokai, then maybe they are actually the sea devil instead, and that is why the Gorosei seem to have actual real devil powers, not just devil fruit powers. That way, if someone ate a devil fruit, they would be automatically weak specifically to Imu's water powers. It doesn't matter if the fruit grants you crazy powers like earthquakes, darkness, or even the powers of the literal sun god. In the end, they all lose to Imu, who is Umi, which is the ocean, which is the main enemy of all devil fruit users. In fact, this might even explain why Blackbeard's weird darkness fruit negates devil fruit powers as well, because it's the most similar to Imu's dark arrows and shadowy body as well in a weird way. And also remember that terrifying power I talked about earlier after Garling became a Gorosei? Well, yeah, apparently from across the ocean, Imu shows that they have a sort of remote control connection to all of the Gorosei personally. And using this complete control / remote mind link thing, Imu is able to burn Saturn to a crisp from miles away, leaving nothing but some finely cooked, medium well done Goro steak, but actually just a pile of bones. So it makes me wonder if a Goro steak would pair nicely with a nice side of devil fruit salad either. Might taste good. Now, despite all of this, Imu has an even greater ace up their sleeve yet, because by tapping into the immense power of Vegapunk's Mother Flame, Imu can actually unleash an island-destroying power as well. Now, this divine judgment was showcased in chapter 1060 as Imu used the ancient weapon Uranus to completely erase Lulusia Kingdom off the map. And in doing so, they raised the entire sea levels around the globe by a whole meter. And interestingly enough, this is also incredibly similar once again to yet another power that we've already seen in One Piece a while ago. Because when you compare the two panels here, the way that Uranus destroys islands is almost the exact same way as Enel and the Arc Maxime's ultimate move, Deathpea Raigo. Huh? Well, look at that. A god who uses a giant flying weapon and combines their power to delete entire islands? I mean, Enel really is just Imu foreshadowing in disguise. And coincidentally, as you can see with these two panels here, it seems that we were actually first teased about the Eternal Flame and the Mother Flame back in Enel's cover story as well. So maybe we'll learn that there was actually even more secret foreshadowing happening in Skypiea about Imu and connected to Enel than we all expected. Now, obviously, this world-flooding, island-deleting power is going to be crucial for accomplishing Imu's true goals later, but for now, I feel like I should properly tell you about who Imu probably is in the first place. You see, despite the fact that Imu has only officially been around for a very short time in real-world years, they are quite old when it comes to One Piece years. Because we do know that Imu is at least as old as the Void Century. Now, this was was all seemingly confirmed during the Mid-Egghead Island chapters, because during their discussion with the Gorosei and King Cobra of Alabasta, Vivi's father, they revealed a bunch of knowledge about the Void Century, Nefertari Lily, Vivi's ancestor, and also Joy Boy. All of this on top of the reveal that Saint Saturn also was around at least over 200 years ago in chapter 1125 means to me that Imu is way older than anyone else at this point in the story. Yes, even older than good old Dr. Kureha. And once we get into talking about just how truly, insanely brokenly powerful they are a little bit down the road, you'll understand why all of this knowledge and history makes them one of the most terrifying villains in the history of anime and manga. But again, to truly understand what ultimate powers they have, we first need to know who, or rather what Imu really is. And you'll probably notice that I have been very specific to say them, they, or just call them Imu. And that's because we really have no idea if they are male, female, something else, or if they're even human to begin with. Now, Imu is called a king, but that title really doesn't mean that they are a man, since the word in Japanese, could be a woman as well, or like a non-human creature, I don't know. And while we often refer to the 20 kingdoms and their kings who put their swords in the ground at the base of the empty throne, we actually do know for a fact that at least one of them is a woman with Queen Lily of Alabasta. And we also know that her sword is missing, since Imu confirmed that in their conversation with Cobra in chapter 1084. And oh boy, let me tell you, we are going to talk about that sword in just a little while in detail, because I'm pretty certain we do know where it actually is right now. But regardless, in that very same conversation, we learned that Queen Lily was actually erased from the history of Alabasta. Well, almost, except for a single letter that referred to her as Nefertari D. Lily. This, alongside the really weird obsession that Imu seems to have with Lily and Vivi, has led many people to believe that Imu is only shown in silhouette because they are actually inside the body of Nefertari Lily. Now, a lot of evidence surrounding this theory is actually rooted in Doflamingo's original plan to use Law's Ope Ope no Mi to combine his knowledge of the national treasure of the Holy Land along with an immortal body to conquer the entire world. Something that Imu very clearly has done. And if a former user of the Ope Ope no Mi has made Lily's body immortal and Imu is controlling it now somehow, maybe with demon powers, wink wink nudge nudge, that would be one crazy turn of events. Talk about being obsessed. Then there's of course also the other secret ability that Law's Devil Fruit has, which is actually exchanging personalities between bodies, so it could just be that the Ope Ope Fruit was used to transfer Imu's personality into another body. Or, well, it could just be that Imu has just straight up been Lily the entire time and is just using Imu's name as a sort of disguise here. Which surprisingly could make a lot of sense, since Imu is incredibly small, it seems. Now, the biggest piece of evidence for this is that they do not seem to come even close to fitting on the massive empty throne up in Marijua. This fact can easily be seen best in chapter 1085, where their legs can't even reach the ground. Aww, with the baby legs, Imu over here would need a booster chair maybe? Also, if Imu just wasn't a straight up human adult, that would kind of explain maybe their weird proportions that they seem to have, and there seem to be a few other pieces of evidence hinting at the idea that they're actually really tiny. On the other hand though, when we're first meeting them, they're holding a wanted poster, which honestly, when we look at it, doesn't seem to be like super big or something. It just seems to be fairly regularly sized, and I think that could be an argument that maybe just the throne is unusually large, which, knowing the world government and how big everything is up in Marijua, would not be that surprising either. And also the fact that they are pretty slender and have a giant crown on their head, which is just super over giga sized, kind of points in the average sized person category to me as well. Possibly a woman the size of Vivi, especially when compared to the size of the swords on the throne. But then again, they might not actually even be human. I mean, going back to NL's cover story, Imu's actual proportions seem to somewhat resemble one of the space pirates that we see in that cover story as well. Just another thread that kind of connects both of these deities, but it's not gonna be the last. Now, of course, as of the recording of this video, Imu has only been shown in absolute silhouette form, meaning that their appearance has great weight and needs a truly climactic dramatic reveal, probably one of the most insane moments in the entire story when it happens. And this has actually led to a bunch of theories about who they actually are, like possibly being an ancient ruler or even a mythical demon, but that's something again we will get back to in just a second. First, I want to talk about a truly incredible mystery about Imu that I need to discuss first. Because possibly even more important than their size or their age is their special eyeballs. Probably the most iconic feature of Imu that is highlighted in the manga and the anime. These creepy red circular kind of eyes are absolutely piercing and full of hate. And weirdly enough, they also seem to share a lot of similarity with those of Dracula Mihawk, which definitely has caused some theories to arise as well. Is Mihawk a celestial dragon, a former holy knight, possibly also from the Nerona family? Or if this Imu isn't actually the same Nerona Imu, are they connected in some other different way as well? Oh, in a way, it doesn't really matter if Imu is Nerona, Nefatari, or just a secret devil, since they do seem to have plans to kidnap princesses, defeat the entire D-clan, and even destroy the entire One Piece world if necessary. So what actually are Imu's true goals? Let me just say that the Gorosei are not exactly subtle about that. They kind of spell it out for us pretty straightforward in chapter 908 when they talk about erasing another light from history. This, of course, only being brought up since King Cobra requested an audience. Not to mention that they completely erased Lulusia Kingdom just to kill Sabo, someone who also uncovered the truth of the world and actually saw Imu himself. Remember, they also completely leveled Ohara for researching the true history and assassinated Vegapunk for the very same reason. And so all of this points to them very clearly doing anything and everything in their power to keep the world history a secret and killing the D-clan as well in the process, even if that means raising the oceans up and sinking a lot of islands into the ocean as well. Something that they're clearly prepping for by making all of these massive bridges like Tequila Wolf here so high above the current sea level and living on top of the Red Line themselves. All of these facts, alongside many of the ancient kingdoms being submerged at this point, all seem to point to the fact that Imu and the Gorosei previously sank the entire planet in the ocean as well and are ready to now do it all over again. And by the way, bringing up something from a little bit earlier, the name Nerona actually backs this up pretty well, because Nero, the Roman emperor that Nerona probably got its name from, was infamous for burning down his entire city of Rome just to rebuild it even greater, which I would say fits in really nicely with Imu's plan to flood the entire world. And yet another thing that we definitely know for a fact is that Imu is absolutely hyper fixated on Lily, and most likely Vivi as well, just by association. One, they have a giant painting of Lily, love talking about her, and actively hold onto a photo of her descendant Vivi as well. I mean, those are some serious husband who keeps a picture of his wife inside his wallet type of vibes, or I mean, you know, like that, just way creepier and more gross. We actually see this portrait at the start of chapter 1116 during Vegapunk's speech about the Void Century War, yet another hint that Imu was there and is absolutely ancient. And we see Vivi's photograph amongst the collection that Imu has in chapter 908. And among these were also cut up and stabbed photos of Blackbeard, Luffy, and Shirahoshi, which may actually hint at the fact that Shirahoshi is really a D-clan member. I mean, how could that be? Why? I mean, it's because Imu claims that the D-clan is their biggest enemy and a group that needs to be destroyed. Since Imu said it themselves, that's probably arguably their biggest goal yet, as according to Vegapunk during his broadcast, the war never ended to begin with. The D-clan has always been the world government's and Imu's fated rival from way back during the Void Century, and since Vivi, Blackbeard, and Luffy are all part of the D-clan, Shirahoshi's photo among them kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. I told you that every scene Imu is a part of reveals a crazy amount of information, all densely packed into just a panel or two each chapter that we see them. Kind of like with Shanks or Joy Boy, you know? For example, remember that sword that I was talking about before? Lily's missing sword from the throne room? Well, I actually think it might be the same one that was used in chapter 908 to stab Shirahoshi's photo. It is constantly a centerpiece in panels with Imu inside of this flower garden, Imu's favorite hangout spot in the Holy Land, it seems. The fact that Cobra called this missing sword out, and then Imu went on this huge rant about Lily, and it was originally revealed in the very same chapter as Imu's name was dropped. To me, this really implies a connection Lily to Imu, connects the sword to Lily, and thus points at the sword being that same missing blade from Lily all those years ago. But of course, it's not just swords that Imu collects, because they also have a giant straw hat that just seems to be gathering dust in a massive cooler that was presented in the very same chapter and pages that Doflamingo talks about the hidden treasure of Marijua, and in the first chapter that we ever get to see Imu. Now, whether Imu or the straw hat is the treasure here, that's kind of up for debate, or it could even be something else, but I can see it going either way really. But I do think the line wants us to believe it's the straw hat, which again, knowing Oda makes me think the opposite. That's a misleading clue pointing out Imu themselves potentially being the treasure of the Holy Land. Now, whose head is this? I mean, we do know it can't be Luffy's. The dude is literally wearing it all the time, so the obvious guess here is Joy Boy, seeing as we know that Imu has a really strong connection to him as well. After all, we do know that Imu is familiar with the poneglyphs, and the way they talk about them makes me really think that they did not want the world to know about Joy Boy. And since Zunisha and Emeth, the Iron Giant, have both confirmed that Gear 5 Luffy looks and acts very similar to Joy Boy, and we even see him wear a hat during Emeth's flashback, the first glimpse at Joy Boy's silhouette ever that we've gotten, the likelihood of these two straw hats being the same is really high. Now, people might say, oh, Joy Boy's hat here would be way too small. I mean, that hat in Marijua seems to be huge, and that's totally fair. Maybe it grew with the Nika powers. I mean, the same way that Luffy stuff does when he goes giant mode. Or maybe this hat is not even Joy Boy's, but actually that of the sun god Nika, and Imu is actually way older than I even previously thought possible. Regardless of this though, we do know that the straw hat is really important, and odds are that Imu's real goal is to kill off Luffy and truly erase Nika and Joy Boy's legacy from this world. On the flip side, their caring and really odd reactions to Lily and Joy Boy seems to show that they might have an even weirder, more complicated, potentially romantic relationship to either of these great legends of the past as well. And it might explain why Imu does prefer to stay in the shadows as well, because Imu is clearly strong enough to single-handedly kill the Gorosei, something that all of the Straw Hat crew together and the Giants couldn't even do. So at the very least, even if they were just granting the Gorosei power and taking it back, they are capable of creating invincible demon men who can terrorize a Yonko crew with absolute ease. What I'm trying to say here, if they really wanted to, Imu could absolutely just go ahead and reveal themselves to the world and rule it like a true dictator, because they do have the power to back it up. And of course, there are a few other points that really tie into this as well. Not only do they hide in the shadows, quite literally, but Imu explicitly kills anyone who knows about their true identity as a rule. Like, the Gorosei murder anyone who see their true forms unless they're a vice admiral or stronger. And this is some serious covering up even in this final phase of the story. And to me, that kind of would suggest that Imu does not really care about fame. So maybe they have some other deeper motive for having all that power. And we do know that even Vegapunk, having learned a lot about the true history of the world, doesn't know which of the original two great powers fighting during the Void Century was actually morally right, which is just such a mind-blowing statement. So maybe the war during the Void Century between the 20 Kingdoms and Joy Boy, maybe it wasn't as black and white and as good versus evil as we all thought, but actually a battle of two different ideologies that both had their issues and both had their arguments that were once actually united that then clashed. A sort of civil war that shook the entire world. Like maybe a battle between lovers, or actually maybe brothers? I mean, brotherhood, exchanges of sake, and family torn between different factions. All of these things appear in Luffy's life with Ace Sabo and his father and grandfather as well. And this potential connection between Imu and Joy Boy is something that I talk about in 2 theories about Bing Sake and Joy Boy's life that I made right here. And if you want to know everything that we know about Joy Boy, you can watch that video below right here. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. As always, a massive thank you to all our Patreons, because you guys really are what allows us to, make this amazing art and, keep the channel going and do cooler and crazier stuff. If you want to support us, head over there, check it out. You will get a bunch of really cool perks. And yeah, I can't really express enough how grateful I am for your support. And I will see you in this next one.